Seeing John again felt like reopening a chapter of my life I thought was closed forever. It has been 8 long years since we last spoke, but he was just as I remembered him. His easy smile still had the magical power to calm the storms in my heart, and his eyes always seemed to know what I was thinking before I even said it. But here I am, thinking about another man when I have a husband and a child. It feels so wrong. But please, don't judge me too quickly. Let me share my story, a painful tale of how John and I had to break up, and how I ended up marrying Michael. Many years ago, before I married Michael, my heart belonged to John. John and I were lovers for a long time, and he was my first love too. We planned to be together forever, and we dreamt of a future filled with love, adventure, and pure joy. The day John proposed marriage to me was the happiest, and also the most painful day of my life. I was so happy that I was finally going to be with the man of my dreams, but all that happiness faded away when I told my parents about it. My parents did not want me to marry John because he was from another tribe. They refused to give their blessings to our union, and they said John could never truly be a part of our family because he was from a different cultural background. I had many arguments with them over this issue, and I tried to convince them of John's qualities and his love for me, but they could not overlook the traditions of their people, and they refused to entertain the idea of me marrying outside my tribe or state of origin. My parents' decision to distance me from John and towards someone they preferred was made with the belief that they were safeguarding my future. They said they meant well for me by wanting me to marry within our tribe. But at what cost? My happiness. John and I were heartbroken. We broke up not because we stopped loving each other, but because of the constant pressure from my family, who didn't approve of our relationship. Maybe that was why it was so hard to let go. Neither of us wanted to end things, but the constant pressure from my family's disapproval was too much. We parted ways on a cold morning, as we promised to always remember each other kindly. John left town to pursue his master's degree, carrying the sadness of our goodbye. The memory of our final goodbye still haunts me. I remember watching him walk away, his figure gradually getting blurrier as my eyes filled with tears, and I wondered if I would ever feel complete again. A year after John left, I met Michael through a family friend. Michael was everything my parents wanted for me. He was rich, handsome, and most importantly, he was from our tribe. We weren't in love, but our families thought we were a good match because of our backgrounds. Our compatibility was endorsed by ancestry and tradition. We got married 2 years after we met. The decision to marry Michael came mostly from my parents' expectations and family pressure. Our marriage only made sense because it followed the rules and traditions of our society, and not because I loved him. But Michael was kind and he seemed to really care about me. I tried to tell myself that maybe I could learn to love him, but our marriage feels more like a contract bound by sacred vows, instead of a romantic relationship. I can't remember the last time my husband and I shared a moment of true affection. Fast forward to today, I am married to a man I respect, but do not love, at least not in the way I love John. Our marriage is stable, but passionless. After 5 years of being married to Michael, it doesn't even feel like we are close. Our marriage feels very uncomfortable. It's like wearing clothes that don't fit right. We live and work together well as husband and wife, and we also do a good job at raising our son, but the love that should tie us together has never truly formed. We are like 2 actors playing out our roles, and the only thread that is holding our strained relationship together is the marriage vow we once took. We don't fight because there's hardly any emotion between us to even fuel a fight. Sometimes I wonder if a stormy relationship might show more real feelings. Instead, our conversations are polite, respectful, and totally without romance. This isn't the kind of marriage I dreamed of as a young girl full of hopes for love and passion. I still hold a grudge towards my parents for forcing their choices on my life. Their insistence on me marrying someone from our own background felt outdated and restrictive. Over the years, as my anger grew towards them, my parents noticed I wasn't happy and they started to feel sorry. My mother, especially, grew softer, and in quiet moments, she would apologize, her eyes reflecting sorrow for the happiness she had stolen from me. "We thought we were doing the best for you," she said one afternoon, sounding really sad. But her late apologies couldn't take away my bitterness. It was in the midst of this tough time that John came back into my life. I ran into him unexpectedly at an art show. He looked different, yet entirely the same. His hair was a bit shorter, and there were new wrinkles around his eyes that weren't there before, but his smile still made my heart skip a beat. He asked about my life, and I told him I was married, with a son. I asked if he was alone, and he explained that he was previously married, but he divorced a year ago. His marriage had been a mistake, they weren't a good match, he said with a sad smile. His openness about his failed marriage made my heart ache with sorrow. I felt sorry for him. Since that accidental encounter, John and I began talking regularly. Our conversations were long and filled with laughter as we talked about the beautiful memories we shared in the past. As we reconnected, speaking for hours about everything and nothing, I felt my old feelings for him coming back to life. It was as if no time had passed, it was clear the old flames were still burning bright. One particular evening, while we were talking on the phone, John said something that really made me think deeply. He said, "Sarah, do you ever think about what life would have been like if we had tried harder to stay together?" His words echoed the hidden feelings in my heart. "Yes," I confessed, "I think about it all the time." Talking to John brought up a lot of emotions I thought would have disappeared because of my marriage. With every laugh we shared, and every memory we revisited, I felt more alive, but also more disturbed. I knew I wasn't being fair to my husband, Michael, not because of my actions, but because of what I was thinking and feeling. I missed John's company, his touch, his understanding. It was getting harder to pull away from this renewed connection with John and return to my everyday life where these feelings were impossible to achieve. Life with my husband, Michael, was the same. Each day was just like the one before. We woke at the same time each morning, and talked about simple things like the plan of the day for our son, what to eat, and family duties. In the evenings, we shared the same room, but not the same connection, we were each doing our own thing. Michael is a good person, very dependable, and a great dad, and I really respect him for that. But the feelings I have for him are nothing like the strong, intense feelings I had for John. With Michael, my heart doesn't beat faster, there's no deep longing. It feels like being friends, without the spark that makes love exciting. It was like being stuck on the same page of a book forever. One evening, while the house was quiet and my husband, Michael, had taken our son to watch a football match, I was alone at home as I sat in our living room, thinking about John. After thinking for a bit, I decided to give him a call. John picked up the phone quickly. He asked how I was doing. I tried to sound cheerful as I replied, keeping the conversation light, but John sensed there was more beneath the surface. He could tell I was not very happy. In our last chat, I had told him about my life now, and how things with Michael, my husband, weren't going well. Our marriage felt empty, like living with someone you barely know. After a brief silence, John asked me a question that would forever change the course of my thoughts. He wanted to know if I would be brave enough to change my life, to be happier, and to maybe be with him instead. He was asking if I thought about leaving my current life to go back to the happier times we had together. His question wasn't just about us getting back together, it was about whether I was brave enough to go after the happiness we were supposed to have had, which was unfairly taken away from us by life. This question really surprised me and made me think a lot. It reminded me of the dreams I had when I was younger, about having a wonderful and loving life, the kind that fairy tales are made of but reality often denies. After we hung up, I kept thinking about John's question. In the days that followed, John's question haunted me. I couldn't stop thinking about what John had asked. The idea of leaving Michael and maybe starting over with John felt exciting, but also very scary. It would mean a big change for me, and I wasn't sure if it was the right thing to do. Why does love have to be so wicked? Why does it have to be so tricky and hard to understand? John's words keep echoing in my mind, full of promises of love, and the life that we could have had together. But here I am, stuck in a life that feels cold and loveless. To leave would be to betray, yet to stay might be to lose the part of me that can truly love. With John, I see a chance to actually be happy again. But I took marriage vows that were meant to last forever. Am I willing to break those vows and then change the balance of my child's life for a chance at happiness that was once denied to me? Should I choose love over people's expectations of me? Should I choose excitement over comfort? And in doing so, should I seek after happiness that is totally reserved for me? Choosing to leave Michael and pursue a life with John is not a decision to be taken lightly. It's full of questions that could cause problems for more than just me. Being with John again would mean changing everything in my life, which might upset a lot of people. But staying in my current life meant continuing to feel unhappy and unfulfilled. I feel trapped by the weight of this decision. Is my own happiness worth the trouble it might cause? If I choose to leave Michael for John, what lessons would I be teaching my son? Would it pose serious questions about the values I hold dear, about commitment, the sacredness of marriage? Would my son grow to view commitment as something to be easily discarded when it becomes inconvenient? Could I really tear apart his stable home just for my own happiness? Or could this teach him that it's important to chase happiness, even when it's hard? These questions torment me. Thinking about leaving is very hard. It could lead to a lot of people judging me or my friends and family being disappointed. Yet, should I just sacrifice my own happiness? It might feel selfish to focus so much on what I want, but it also feels wrong to ignore my own feelings completely. Is it right to chase happiness at the expense of others? Or do I need to give up my happiness as a sacrifice for the stability of my home? Why do I have to choose between my own joy and the happiness of my family? Decisions of the heart are not to be rushed, and I haven't made mine yet, despite many sleepless nights and many days spent soul-searching. Alone at night, I often find myself wrestling with these thoughts, speaking into the darkness as if it could answer me back. What is the price of happiness? I would ask, staring out into the starlit sky. And who pays it? The silence around me is heavy with the weight of my unspoken dreams and desires. What should I do? I whispered into the night. Should I follow my heart, which sings only for John, or should I stick with my family that we've built together? My heart longs to break free from the duties and expectations that bind me, to reclaim the love it once knew with John. Yet, my mind urges caution, reminding me of the commitments I've made. Am I being selfish? Or is it more selfish to deny my true feelings, to live a lie? Shall I continue a half-lived life, a performance maintained for the sake of appearances? I know I need to make a choice, one that will redefine not just my future but also that of my son. Whatever decision I make, it must be one I can live with, one that considers not just the desires of my heart, but also the well-being of my child and respect for the life I have lived so far. Maybe what I need isn't just a decision on who to love, but a deeper understanding of what love means and what it demands of us. Yet, deep down, I feel the need to be true to myself, to seek a life where I can love fully and without reservation. Should I stop seeing John and keep my family the way it is? Or should I take a big step, maybe even get a divorce, to try to be truly happy with John, the only man I've ever really loved?